There is a hidden history that has been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why we are on the trail of the Nephilim. Today we'll be venturing back down to Paracas. You can see the date 2014. This is the year in January 11th in that window of time where we unwrapped the baby skull. We'll get into that and so much more. But first, a word from our sponsor, Noble Gold. Our government is still borrowing money. Sorry, printing money, $5 trillion in new money to be exact. What could possibly go wrong? Meanwhile, back at D.C., consumer confidence hit a 10-year low. Inflation, 6.8%, with parts of the U.S. seeing rates as high as 8%. Something's not adding up, folks, is it? So what can you do? You can play it safe. Putting some of your assets into precious metals will keep your money away from the volatility of the markets. And this month, Noble Gold is giving away a free 1/10 of an ounce solid gold American Eagle coin with any qualifying plan you select. So talk to an expert at Noble Gold, and they'll run through the options for keeping your money safe. No pressure, no hassle, no call centers. Just a chance to speak to someone who knows what they're talking about for once. How refreshing would that be? Call us, 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347, or visit our website at noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. So in 2014, we took a team down to the Paracas History Museum. Senior Juan passed away a couple of years ago. It's just amazing how life is so fragile, and wonderful man, warm man. And we had to, when we would converse, we'd have to have an interpreter because I knew very little Spanish, he knew very little English. So Irene was our interpreter, Brian's wife, and that was great, and we had lots of communication. I actually dedicated the On the Trail of the Nephilim book to Senior Juan because it was just, his research really is the nexus for all of this, at least for us. So I'm going to run the clip and you guys can check it out, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. I'm going to go back here because I want to show you something, and we'll talk about this. Look at the orbits. The orbits are about 25 to 30% larger than a normal human being. Look at the strawberry blonde hair. This skull was 1,935 years. How do we know that? Because we took samples from, and I'll go back here, when we're unwrapping the skull. You can see the tapestries. Let me move it back a little bit. You can see the tapestry right in here. Right there's a good shot of it. So there's the tapestry, and you can see just the way it's put together is absolutely incredible. And this is after 2,000 years, almost 2,000 years. The colors are still vibrant. That's what's so amazing about the Chongos necropolis. This mummy skull came from the Chongos necropolis. It's about half an hour from Senior Juan's museum, right outside of Paracas. I've been there numerous times, and every time you go, it's different. So the Wakaros are conducting illegal exhumations of burials. You can't do that without a permit. And of course, here's the rub. So the Wakaros operate, no one does anything, but for us it took us 3 years just to be able to do the DNA testing. We had this cloth that you see here, we had it tested at a lab. We just told them it was mummy wrappings, and it came back 1,935 years ago. So it's pretty amazing. Who gets to unwrap a 2,000-year-old mummy skull? This skull right here, on the right, is this guy. This is the Model S Joe Taylor, that you can see with the white beard. And Joe did one-to-one casting of all the artifacts down there. So you can see this, that it's pretty amazing. And let me just get here again. This is Brian's skull, and we had that tested also. So this is a shot of Aaron Judkins and Joseph Taylor, where they're beginning to unwrap the mummy skull. So when we get over to here, by this time when it's outside, Chase has already tagged and bagged. That's a really good shot of it. Hair samples and other tissue. It's already done. Way before. In other words, the moment we got to the hair, it was instantly tagged by Chase Klotsky. We sent those samples off to a lab, and it showed a U2E1. We sent samples. It was tested 3 different times in 3 different labs. Every lab, no collusion between them. It came back U2E1, which is Eastern European. So that does rewrite history. So when you look at this skull, the first thing that we were just blown away with was the strawberry blonde hair. That should not be in South America at all whatsoever, and yet there it is. So between the color of the hair, the fact that the orbits are 25 to 30% larger, the fact that the pupillary distance where your pupils are should be about 60 millimeters. Here it's about 40 to 45. Again, the foramen magnum, we didn't know about the foramen magnum when we unwrapped this skull. That wouldn't happen until several years later when Rick Woodward joined the team. So the foramen magnum, and I've talked about this numerous times, is that point of connectivity between the spinal column and the base of the skull. And I'm going to show you on this skull right here what that looks like, just so you can see it. For some of you, this is old stuff we've gone over, but I've never shown this clip before. It came up on my phone. So, John Adam, is that a good view of it? You want to push in a little bit on that, maybe? Thank you. So you can see where the foramen magnum, the brain hole, it should be down in here someplace. It should be right underneath the midpoint of a skull, but it's all the way pushed back to the occipital plate. So you can't do that in utero. You can't manipulate the foramen magnum. The foramen magnum is set at birth, before birth. It's done in the womb. It's done in utero. So the fact that this foramen magnum is pushed back all the way to the occipital plate is telling. It should be right in dead center of the skull, right? Let me see if I can show you that. Right about there. And it's not. It's not. So and this is the work of Rick Woodward, our anthropologist on the team. Rick was the one that discovered this, wrote a paper on it, and when we did a DNA presentation, which is episode 6 in On the Trail, and you can see that for yourself, if you go to streaming.lamarzulli.net, Rick was the one that, Rick Woodward was the one that brought that to all of our attention. So, in other words, people have handled these, they've looked at them, but no one ever made the comparison. They were always looking at the outside of the skull. There's another thing here that there's a lack of a sagittal suture. So with many of the Paracas skulls, there's no sagittal suture at all. That's the suture that goes from right up here all the way back and would connect the frontal plate to the rear plate or the occipital plate. So that's not there. So in my opinion, this is genetic. When you go to, if you're interested in this at all and you want to do a deep dive, Go to streaming.lamarzulli.net. Watch episode number 6, DNA, the final result. It's all there. I spent a lot of time on that film. A lot of time. We had everything from all of our Watcher series, everything in the DNA. There was like hundreds and hundreds of hours of film, and I had to edit it all because Rick was gone. Rick had already passed away. Very untimely. I miss him. But the bottom line is this. When you watch that film, you will hear from doctors, from surgeons, from anthropologists, archaeologists, optometrists, a whole bevy of people, a chiropractor who knows anatomy. Are you kidding me? All of them look at these artifacts, look at these skulls, and say, without question, what we are looking at is something that is genetic. Folks, it rewrites history. Is it a giant? No, it's not. But interestingly enough, there's one of the terms, I should say labels, one of the names of the Nephilim tribes, which are the Horites. And the Horites means cave dwellers. So when you go to the biblical narrative and Joshua and Caleb press in, we see that one of the Nephilim tribes there, among the Zanzumim, the Imams, and Rephaim, the Nephilim, are in fact the Horites, which means cave dwellers. Interestingly enough, and we didn't know this, okay? Interestingly enough, I didn't know this till 2019 when I was down with Tim Alberino and another film crew, not my film crew, Tim's film crew. And Chase Klotsky was with us. And the archaeologist who was present with us took us way out into the reserve. Now, the public doesn't go to the reserve. You got to have permits and all this other stuff. But it's loosely guarded, and the Wakaros know how to get around that. But I digress. So we're out there at the reserve, and the archaeologist takes us to what was 2,000-3,000 years ago, one of the original homes of the so-called Paracas people with the elongated skulls. This overlooked a beautiful bay with nothing on it, pristine. I mean, it's like going back in time. Nothing was there. It was just, I have pictures of it, just incredible. And there was like a doorway that went, it was just a little rectangle like a chimney, which went down into the earth after thousands of years. It was still intact. And I asked him, I said, how far down does it go? He said, well, the ones that we've explored go down 20, 30, sometimes even more. It goes down into the earth. I go, well, why would they want to do that? He goes, I don't know. I go, I asked him, was there evidence of torch marks? How did they see in this underground cavern? He said, we don't know. I took the skull to an optometrist, and Jeff Duff, who comes in on the record, episode 6. And it was the first optometrist that we went to. And he looked at the skulls, there were more than one, and he just said, look, the pupillary distance is all wrong. The orbits are 25 to 30% larger. Based on that alone, Jeff posited that these entities had night vision. Whoa, right? No one has ever stated that before. And this is why it's a multidiscipline team. You can see all that. Shameless plug on episode 6, DNA, the final results. All right, let's get into our UFO thing. Once again, when we were down there at Senior Wands Museum, Chase let us film her talking about her encounter with a gray. So the reason why I bring this up, and I've shown this before, but what's important is, if these entities are so wonderful and friendly, and it's like the movie E.T., and it's all about love and brotherhood, and these are our space brothers, then why does Chase and everybody else in the field, when this entity appears and the ship goes over, why are they terrified? You tell me. Why are they terrified? I'll run the clip. There she is. You can see Senior Wands Museum in the background. So here's the interview with Chase Klotsky. It was, at the time, she had never told that to any of the production company. So it was a great honor for us, and I hope she's doing well. Here we go.
Extremely overwhelming to have something like this right there, and there's nothing you can do to record it. All of a sudden, there was just this feeling, and I turned around and kind of asked everybody else in the field if they felt like they were being watched. Okay. And I said, and I don't mean from up there, I mean from down here. And before anyone could answer, and there was barely any time, there was this fear that just gripped. It was physical, LA. It like punches into you almost. It's just really hard to describe.
I'm very familiar with that feeling.
This is not fight or flight. This is times 1,000. This is every single cell in your body is very aware of a blind terror. I dropped my equipment. I literally dropped my
And
equipment.
your equipment's worth how many thousands of dollars?
Many thousands.
So you leave your equipment in the field.
Yes.
So you are genuinely terrified.
Absolutely. The witness was in front of me, and all of a sudden he stops. He moved a flashlight, and never so shocked in my life because standing 6 feet away was this little being about 3.5 foot tall. And I was so stunned. And the first thing that hit me was, oh my gosh, this is not that cute little Roswell alien. However, it was gray. It did have the black eyes, but they weren't the real big, wrapped around almond, but they were almond shaped. And the first thing I thought of after that was his legs were so tiny, twig-like. There it is right there, and it was the holy grail for an ufologist is this little being, but we weren't supposed to be there. We were not supposed to interact. We were not supposed to do anything but get out of that corner.
What expression did it have on its face?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely.
Did it gesture towards you in any way?
No.
Did it move towards you?
Nothing.
It just stood there. And you made eye contact with it?
Yes.
What was that like?
Terrifying.
Terrifying. So she goes, I ask her, did you make eye contact with it? She says, yes. What was that like? Chase says it was terrifying. So the music is really loud. We can't do anything about that. I apologize for it. Do your best. Maybe watch it a couple of times so you can glean all that's there in that interview. The bottom line is, if it is a little cute little Roswell alien, the little gray that is now enculturated and everything, why is she terrified? Why is it fight or flight times 1,000? Why does she say things like that? Making eye contact. What was that like? Terrifying. She said it punches into you. It's visceral. That what she was feeling was visceral. Folks, this is not beings and entities from Zeta Reticuli. This is something else. This is the world of the dragon. And I believe these are avatars, but I digress. Maybe I'll talk about that some more tomorrow, what I think the grays are. But I just wanted to run that because a lot of you have never seen that interview, and it's a riveting interview. So remember, you can, right there on if you click the text box, right below our sponsors and all the other links it shows, you will see the link. You can't miss it. It says free UFO film. UFO film. It's right there. Click the link. Watch the film. It's that important. There is something that's coming, which will be unprecedented when they finally do show up, and they will show up. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, we'll see you on the air or in the air.
My name is Alan Matthews. I've seen a UFO.
I've seen a UFO.
I saw a UFO.
A UFO.